Welcome back to NASM CPT exam prep. This is chapter 5 of 20, the last lesson in this stretch of basic and applied sciences and nutritional concepts. Today's lesson is human movement science. We'll cover the 3 planes of motion, muscle roles, and force-couple relationships. This is the vocabulary behind every movement in this course. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to do 4 things. First, identify the 3 planes of motion and an example movement in each. Second, differentiate agonist, antagonist, synergist, and stabilizer muscle roles. Third, explain force-couple relationships. And fourth, recognize that muscle roles are movement-specific, not fixed labels. That last point is going to matter more than it sounds. Let's talk about describing movement precisely. The sagittal plane, flexion and extension, forward and backward movement. A squat, a bicep curl, walking forward. The frontal plane, abduction and adduction, side-to-side movement. A side lunge, a lateral raise, a jumping jack. And the transverse plane, rotation, twisting movement. A torso twist or a rotational medicine ball throw, which you'll see again in Lesson 9. Here's something worth naming. Most real-world and sport movement blends multiple planes at once. A well-rounded program trains all 3, not just the sagittal default that most gym programming leans on. Now let's talk about who's doing what. The agonist, or prime mover, the muscle most responsible for producing the movement. The biceps during a bicep curl. The antagonist, the muscle that opposes the agonist. The triceps during a bicep curl. This is the same pair that reciprocal inhibition, which you'll cover in Lesson 7, works through. The synergist, a muscle that assists the agonist, sharing the workload or helping guide the movement. And the stabilizer, a muscle that holds a body segment steady so the agonist and synergists can produce force efficiently. The local stabilization system you'll see in Lesson 9 is a core example of this. Here's a way to make this concrete. Think of a squat. Quads are the agonist. Hip flexors act as the antagonist. Glutes and hamstrings act as synergists. And the core acts as the stabilizer. One exercise, all 4 roles at once. Here's the real concept underneath all of this. Multiple muscles working together around a joint to produce coordinated movement. No single muscle acts entirely alone. A classic example, the rotator cuff stabilizing the shoulder while the deltoid produces an overhead press. Here's the important part. When one part of a force couple is weak or inhibited, another part often overcompensates. This is exactly how several compensations you'll see in Lesson 13's OHSA develop. Hold on to that connection. Force couple imbalances are the underlying mechanism behind those compensations. When you get to Lesson 13, this should feel like a satisfying explanation of why those compensations happen. Here's an important nuance. A muscle isn't permanently the agonist or a stabilizer. Its role depends on the specific movement. The glutes are the agonist during a hip thrust, but they act more as a stabilizer during a single-leg balance exercise, which you'll cover in Lesson 10. So here's the rule to remember. Always describe muscle role relative to a specific movement, never as a fixed label. This nuance trips people up on the real exam. Questions will present a muscle in a specific movement context and ask for its role there, not in general. There's no universal answer key for what role does the glute play, without specifying the exercise. Let's check your understanding. Question: during a bicep curl, which muscle is the agonist? Take a second and think it through. The correct answer is the biceps. Here's why. The biceps is the prime mover, or agonist, during a bicep curl, producing the movement. One more question. Can a muscle's functional role change between exercises? Pause and think back to the glute example. The correct answer is yes. Muscle roll is specific to the movement being performed. Here's why. Muscle rolls are movement specific. A muscle can be the agonist in one exercise and act as a stabilizer in another. Let's bring it all together. There are 3 planes of motion: sagittal, flexion and extension; frontal, abduction and adduction; and transverse, rotation. There are 4 muscle rolls: agonist, antagonist, synergist, and stabilizer. A force-couple relationship is multiple muscles working together around a joint. No muscle acts alone. Muscle rolls are movement-specific, not fixed labels. And well-rounded programming trains all 3 planes, not just sagittal. Here's the bigger picture. This closes out the first half of this domain. Lessons 1 through 5 have now built the full scientific foundation: philosophy, the nervous system, the cardio system, energy systems, and now movement science. From here, the domain pivots into nutrition. Great work getting through Lesson 5. Next up is Lesson 6, Fitness Assessment. We'll cover health risk screening, vitals, body composition, and static posture assessment. See you there.